Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Melanie Cassar, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Squadron Leader Stacey Davids. This evening, we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the First Battle of El Alamein. Named after a railway stop in Egypt's Western Desert, the battles that took place between July and November 1942 were the turning point of the war in North Africa. By July 1942, the struggle had swung sharply in favour of Field Marshal Erwin Rommel's Panzerarmee Africa. The Allies had been forced back deep into Egypt. In Alexandria, about 100 kilometres from the front lines, civilians began to flee. Smoke was seen coming from the British Embassy as diplomatic staff began burning papers. The capture of Cairo and the Suez Canal seemed almost inevitable. The fate of the campaign rested with the 8th Army, which included British, New Zealand, South African, Indian and Australian troops, and its new defensive position near the tiny railway stop of El Alamein. Before dawn on the 10th of July 1942, the 9th Division, which had earned a fierce reputation as the Rats of Tobruk, launched its attack. Catching Rommel off guard, it took the important high ground around Tel El Aza. Australian troops spent the next few days fighting off heavy counterattacks before fighting spread to other parts of the front. The 9th Division suffered almost 6,000 casualties between July and November 1942. Notably, the 2nd 28th Battalion had been virtually wiped out at Ruin Ridge in July. As well as halting Rommel's advance, the battle took place at El Alamein in July, laid the groundwork for the decisive victory that would come in November. Although the price was fearfully high, those involved played a crucial role in ensuring this victory, and in doing so, indelibly altered the course of the war itself. Today, we remember El Alamein. We pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. This evening, we warmly welcome Mr. John King, President of the Return and Services League of Australia, ACT branch. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Captain Ronald Charles Cromie. Ronald Cromie was born on the 25th of March 1914 in Rupanyup, Victoria. Known as Ron, he was one of 5 children born to local farmer William Cromie and his wife Jeanette. Ron received his education at Melbourne's Scotch College and later returned to Rupanyup, where he became a wheat farmer. He also went on to join the militia serving part-time with an armoured car regiment. Ron Cromie enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in Melbourne on the 3rd of July, 1940. He was assigned to the 26th Anti-Tank Company and began training at the Army camp at Caulfield. After further training at Albury and Bendigo, at the beginning of July, he was granted a commission and promoted to lieutenant before being seconded for staff duties. On the 14th of September, he married Leslie McCullen in the Little John Memorial Chapel at his former school, Scotch College. A month later, he embarked for service from Sydney on board the troop ship Orion. Lieutenant Cromie arrived at Haifa in Palestine with his unit in December. After traveling by train to camp at Dimra in Palestine and joining other units in their brigade, Cromie's company continued training until January 1941, when it moved to the port town of Tobruk. They joined the thousands of Australian soldiers besieged by the enemy for over 8 months. They were attached to a number of different infantry battalions during the siege, fighting to prevent an enemy breakthrough. On the 30th of May, Cromie was wounded by shrapnel from an enemy mortar and was removed from the front lines for treatment. He spent a number of days in hospital at Tobruk before being evacuated to the 2nd Australian General Hospital at Canberra, Egypt. After receiving treatment for his wounds, Cromie was moved to an officers' convalescent hotel to recover. Before returning to active service, Cromie was transferred to the 2nd 23rd Infantry Battalion in September 1941 and promoted to captain. He was then seconded to his old unit, the 26th Anti-Tank Company, with which he remained until early 1942. He attended anti-tank and artillery training courses before returning to the 2nd 23rd Battalion in March. By then, Axis forces had begun a decisive sweep into Egypt, placing them within reach of Alexandria, Cairo, and the Suez Canal. Their advance was halted by Allied troops at the small railway stop of El Alamein, where a stalemate ensued as the Allies attempted to push back the enemy. The 2nd 23rd was rushed from Syria to the vicinity of El Alamein to defend the northern sector. On the 22nd of July, Cromie's battalion was ordered to capture a section of high ground known as Point 24. Cromie was the commanding officer for C Company, which was the first to advance on the morning of the attack. Fierce fighting resulted and visibility was reduced to almost nothing. Members of C and D companies attempted to dig in, suffering heavy casualties under intensified shelling. By 8 a.m., a German counterattack had developed, opening fire on Point 24 with machine guns and mortars when Allied companies were within 100 yards of their objective. During this counterattack, Captain Ron Cromie was hit by enemy machine gun fire and killed. The enemy continued shelling Point 24 for the rest of the day, after which Cromie's body was recovered from the battlefield. He was buried at the nearby El Alamein War Cemetery. His wife later posted a memorial notice in the newspaper which read, "Sunshine passes, shadows fall, love and remembrance outlast all. Captain Ron Cromie was 28 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. In the photograph displayed today beside the pool of reflection, Captain Ron Cromie is seated in the front row, second from the left. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Captain Ronald Charles Cromie, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave here this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.